Okay, good. All right, so let's begin in a comfortable seat. And we'll use our first few minutes of practice here to arrive into the room, to arrive into our practice. So your legs may be cross-legged, or you can draw one or both legs out to the side. You can come to a kneeling position. Whatever feels restful on the body today is welcome. And then once you arrive in your seat, add a little bit of movement. So you can explore a bit in the hips, maybe circle the torso or move side to side or front to back. Make sure you move in all directions here. Ooh, Debbie's asking for shoulders. Great. Okay, we can use a tennis ball for that as well. And now let's all take a forward fold here in our seat. It doesn't have to be a full fold. You might just lean forward, or you might place your hands on the floor or on your legs and lean a little bit more deeply here. So be compassionate about your range of movement since we're just starting our practice. And if you like, you can wiggle a little bit from side to side here if that feels good in the fascia. Release your head and neck to gravity. And if you like, you can draw your head a bit from side to side, just slowly and gently. And then let's start to make our way back up. This time, let's bring our hands back behind us in our seat. So plant your hands on your mat behind you. And then press into your fingertips or into your palms. Lift the sternum here. And bring your shoulder blades just a little closer together. And if it's more effective, you can also place your hands in your back pockets and draw your elbows together, or keep your hands on the mat. And then release your arms, roll the shoulders back, roll the shoulders forward. Let's draw both arms out to each side, make a T shape, and reach through your fingers. So splay your fingers. And then let's give ourselves a big old hug, grab opposite shoulders. And then from here, draw chin towards your chest. So we're rounding in the upper spine. A little thoracic work here behind the shoulder blades. If you like to, you can gently rock here from side to side and see if you can follow that opening from the spine into the right shoulder blade, back over to the spine and into the left shoulder blade. And then let's release the arms. Bring the shoulders slowly back to center. Draw the hands out to either side. Take up some space here. And imagine your hands as an extension of your heart. What is your heart's desire? And what do you want to accomplish in the world with that desire? With that thought in mind, let's draw our hands together at the heart. You can bring them into Anjali Mudra, or perhaps one hand stacked on the other. Let's begin our practice with 3 rounds of Om. We'll start with a full breath first. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale to chant. Release your hands and notice the sound reverberating in the silence. When you're ready, open your eyes. Wonderful. Okay, let's begin on the back, where we might stay our whole practice. We'll see. And make sure you have your block handy within arm's reach. So come onto the back with your knees bent here. If you like, you can interlace your fingers behind your head, elbows out to the side, and then walk your shoulder blades a little further up the mat. Find a little extension here through the spine. When you find that extension, you can go ahead and release the head back down onto the floor. Ooh, and let the hands come down by your sides. And then, likewise, let's tune in here into the hips here. And if you like, you can press your feet into the floor and just do a little gentle rocking here along the top ridge of the hips. So right along that iliac crest. We're just moving some skin, some superficial fascia in this area. If you like, you can start to draw the knees a little bit over to the left and move here. You can come back to center. Move the knees a little bit over to the right. So we're targeting the right side of the pelvis here with our little movement. Do that once more on each side. So our practice today is a combination of yin and restorative styles. We'll stay connected to the earth the whole time. And then bring the hips back to center. And then see if you can balance your pelvis here on your mat. Or if you feel like there's one side that's sinking a little bit more deeply into your mat than the other, right or left, just notice that, observe that. And now let's bring our feet hip-width distance apart and bring your heels close to your buns. We're going to take this block and place it in between the thighs. And you can do it at the narrowest setting or maybe the thicker setting. It's really up to you what feels appropriate. I think I'm going to go with a thicker setting today. And then with the heels close to your biscuits, let's go ahead and bend the elbows. Keep the upper arms on the floor and extend the forearms, the hands up towards the ceiling. From here, press into the earth, and we're just going to find a little bit of a back bend here. We're not going to lift anything. We're not going to lift the hips up yet, but just find some lift here in the upper spine. Pressing your elbows into the floor, pressing your upper arms into the floor. And then release that. Let the back of your heart rest on your mat. And then let's engage the pelvis here for a different sensation. So tip the pubic bone up towards the ceiling and flatten the small of your back on the mat. We're still gripping the block here with our thighs. And then go ahead and release, find a neutral pelvis. We're going to alternate between those two positions. So we're not necessarily lifting much off of the floor, we're just engaging. So dig into the floor with your elbows and your upper arms. Find that arch in the upper spine. And then release it down. And then draw the pubic bone up towards the ceiling. Flatten the small of your back on the mat. And then release. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, broaden across the chest. Release as you exhale. Inhale, tip the pubic bone up towards the ceiling. And exhale, release. 1 more time. Working the upper body, finding that arch. And then focusing on the hips, flattening the small of the back on the floor. And release. Good. So we've engaged a few different parts of the spine here. We're going to integrate that by starting to lift the hips. So find that support in the upper body and then tilt the pubic bone up towards the ceiling. Let's lift the hips and come into bridge pose. And we'll stay here for a few breaths, just finding our bearings. Keep that engagement of the inner thighs. And make sure hips are underneath the knees here. On your next exhale, articulate through the spine, lower the hips down, tailbone comes towards the heels, and take a breath here. And then let's move dynamically. Tip the pubic bone up, lift the hips. And then exhale, release down. Let's do that a few times, moving dynamically with the breath, nice and slow, inhaling up and exhaling down. So we're moving through the whole spine here. And then next time your hips are down, go ahead and stay there. Go ahead and release your block. Place it over to the side. And then let's take the feet wide apart here. Maybe mat width distance apart. And then let's draw both knees over to the left. Oh. And then draw both knees over to the right. If you feel any sensitivity in your knees here, you can flex your feet. Sometimes that helps protect the knee joints. Let's do that again to the other side. This time with the knees over to the left, if you want to find a little bit more of an opening in the front of the right hip, you can press into your flexed right foot, draw that hip forward. So you'll engage here in the glutes. And then draw the hips back down. Draw the knees over to the other side. Once again, if you want to find some more opening in the front of the hip, press into the flexed left foot. Draw that hip forward. The glutes engage here. And then come back to center. Good. Let's take the feet back to parallel. And then let's draw both knees in towards us. Rock here from side to side, massaging the low back on the floor. Lovely. And then let's place our feet back onto the floor. And let's locate your tennis ball. Let's start with the left hip today. So go ahead and bring that tennis ball, lean over a little bit over to the right, and then place your tennis ball just right in the center of the glutes here. And then from here, with both knees bent, let's start to move the left thigh. So little clamshell motions here. Draw the left knee out to the side. And then draw it back to center. I can already hear the internal screaming. Or maybe this feels really good. Maybe it's internal, yay! So move that left thigh any amount over to the left. And back to center. So we're using a little trigger point therapy here to target any tight glutes here that may be happening, or maybe even some piriformis tightness. And this might be small. You might just be drawing that left knee over a couple of inches and then back. That's A-okay. The level of pressure is up to you. Some of us might come all the way over to the left side if you're seeking some deep pressure here. And now we're going to bring that tennis ball a little bit closer to the outer hip of the left side. And here, let's explore drawing that knee out to the side and back to center. And while we're here, let's go ahead and draw the left knee in towards the chest and belly. And then let's circle the thigh around in the hip socket here. Oh, discovering something new with my yoga. Go ahead and rotate around in the opposite direction. And then let's draw the tennis ball a little bit further down the hip, maybe closer to the sitting bones. And then start here just with your clamshell motion. Opening and closing. And you can stay there if that feels good, or if you like, you can start to circle that thigh around. This time you can even start to play with lever length here of the legs. So you might extend through your leg, bend the knee, any amount. It might be a little, might be a lot. Follow your instincts here. Yeah, good. And then let's place the left foot on the floor. Let's draw that tennis ball maybe a little closer in towards the tailbone. And here, let's be a little bit more gentle since we're starting to work towards bone. And we have a little less give, a little less play here than we do in the softer tissues and muscles. So here, maybe you just clamshell a few inches out, a few inches in. If you want to add that rotation of the thigh, you can. But again, take it easy in this position right here. And then let's draw the tennis ball a little bit further up towards the iliac crest, the top of the pelvis. And here also, we're closer to bone, so we'll probably have less range of movement. You can work here with your clamshell, all of that muscle and fascia that crosses across the top of the pelvis here and connects with and through the low back. So be compassionate with your range of motion. Good. And now I want you to find a spot that needs some love, a little extra, anywhere along that trajectory, or maybe somewhere a little new on this side. So we sort of made a counterclockwise, I believe, direction around the hip and around the glutes here. Now find the spot that feels like it needs some deep attention And then let's pause and stay here. If it's available to you, you can lengthen that left leg all the way down the mat. Pause here. And then you can rock a little bit here if that feels good. If you'd rather, you can also draw that left knee in towards you and work here. Maybe supporting the leg with your hand. Let's take 3 deep breaths where we are. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale again. Exhale as if you're blowing through a straw. Good. And then let's draw that left foot back underneath us. Bend both knees, release your tennis ball, and let your left cheek come to the mat. Notice any difference here between right and left sides. Right now my left cheek feels like jello. And then let's draw both knees in towards us. We're going to take both knees over to the right. So we're going to take advantage of that opening in the glutes and in the hip here to find a reclined twist. So draw your knees over to the right. You can find some support here. You can place both legs on a blanket or place the blanket in between the knees from knees to ankles. And then from here, once you have the lower body established here, let's roll the left shoulder blade back, extend the left arm out in the opposite direction. And then breathe here. Now we're going to rotate that left arm around. So go ahead and sweep it down. Lean over to the right. Draw it in front of you. And then reach up and overhead. Reach that arm back. So windmilling the left arm around. And if you're moving in the opposite direction, don't worry. I'm going to give you the opportunity to switch. And so move around in a circle here with the left arm. This can be big with the arm lengthened all the way, or you can also do this with a bent elbow and a smaller range of movement here. That's welcome as well. So freeing here behind the left shoulder blade. And then go ahead and reverse that circle. Good. And then go ahead and bring your left hand back to your side. I'm going to ask you to bring your tennis ball back into play here. And we're going to bring that tennis ball underneath the left shoulder blade, right at the center, or place along the inner curve of the shoulder blade that might need some attention. And then once you've got the tennis ball parked right there, let's go ahead and bring that left arm back out to the side, and then maybe you follow just a little tiny circles. So we're moving our body around the tennis ball here as a fixed point. Ooh. You can move in all directions here. Do know that sometimes it works better for release if we do less. So if it feels like a lot of pressure, lean over a little bit more to the right. Do a little less here. Good. And then your option will stay here in our reclined twist for a few more breaths in a static position. So if you want that tennis ball underneath the shoulder blade, you can keep it there. If it's going to feel more relaxing to you to let that tennis ball go, you can simply remove it and bring your left arm out to the side. And breathe. Let's go ahead and roll back over to the right side. Curl into a fetal position here and rock a little bit front to back. And then let's come back to center. Coming back onto the back. And then balance the spine here on your mat. Notice what you notice. See if there's any difference here between right and left. Good. And now let's come into a reclined twist on the other side. So bring your knees in towards you. And then let your legs rest over to the left this time. Stack knees and ankles. If you like, you can use some support. I actually have a bolster here, so I'm going to use a bolster. But you can use a blanket or a block. And then once you find this position with the lower legs on the left side, lower half of the body, go ahead and extend the right arm back behind you. And let it rest on the floor or perhaps on a block or a blanket. Focus on your breath here and create some space between your right armpit and your right hip. On this side, we're going to work with the shoulder first, and then we're going to work with the hip. Good. And now, in your reclined twist, let's start to move the arm. So we'll draw it down, draw it in a circle in front of us, up and back. Follow your breath here. And move in the other direction. Good. And then decide if you want to get the tennis ball in to the equation here behind the shoulder blade. And if you do, go ahead and place it somewhere along the inner edge of the shoulder blade. And then rotate your arm around. Move the body around the tennis ball. You can draw your arm down. You can draw your arm up. And again, be compassionate with the range of motion and the level of pressure that you add here. Sometimes when we're doing this kind of cross-body work, something that we're releasing in the shoulder sometimes affects down in the hip and in the low back. So we're creating space. Even though we're targeting the shoulder blade right now, we're also moving further down the chain here as well. And now let's restore here in our recline twist. Draw that right arm back behind you. You can leave the tennis ball where it is if it feels like it's in a therapeutic place. Or you can remove it and let the shoulder blade rest down towards the floor. Take one more big breath here. And then let's roll over onto the left side. Curl in a fetal position here for a moment. Rock a little bit front to back. Good. And then let's make our way onto the back. And then let's do that work on the right hip. So using your tennis ball, go ahead and lean a little bit over to the left. Place that tennis ball right in the center of your glutes. In that nice, soft, cushy spot. And then let's do some clamshells here over to the right. So take your right knee out. Take your right knee in. And pendiculate here. Opening and closing. If you want to readjust the tennis ball as you move, that's more than welcome here. This is an exercise in self-exploration. When you're ready, start to draw that tennis ball out to the outer edge of the hip. And again, we're getting a little closer to bone, so maybe the range of motion changes here. You can also lift the foot up off of the floor and maybe circle the thigh around. And then let's bring that tennis ball a little closer down towards perhaps the sitting bone on this side. And here you might play a little bit with internal and external rotation, moving in that clamshell direction. You can also do that if you extend the leg all the way down the mat and then just rotate the leg outward from the hip and then inward back to center. Outward and inward. There's a lot you can work with here. So find the right movement for you. Wonderful. I see folks doing all sorts of different movements, and that's great. So note here that you can use the tennis ball here while you're lying on the floor. You can also, I know with many of you, I practice with the tennis ball at the wall, which is a nice way to work a little bit more with range of pressure. Because here we're sort of married to our body weight, but when we're at the wall, you can really play with more and less pressure. And then let's draw the the tennis ball in a little closer towards the tailbone, the sacrum. And here, since we're close to bone, let's have a little bit smaller range of movement. And again, you can clamshell the legs here. You can internally and externally rotate. With the leg lengthened, you can circle the hip around and the thigh around in the hip socket. And now let's draw that tennis ball up towards the upper ridge of the pelvis. Ooh. Right along that iliac crest. And again, since we're on bone here, we do want to be careful about our range of movement. Maybe little small clamshells here, moving that knee out. You can lengthen the leg, bend the knees, circle here. And now let's take that tennis ball to the spot where it feels like you need the most attention. Go ahead and bring the tennis ball there. And then let's work to pause and stay there for a few breaths. You can keep that knee bent, or you can extend the leg all the way down the mat. Good. And then let's come back to center. Go ahead and remove your tennis ball. Place it aside. All that good work with the tennis ball. Let's draw both knees in towards us. Rock and roll from one side to the other. And then let's find happy baby. So bend your knees, draw them in towards your armpits. Grab the outer edges of the feet, rock side to side. If your feet aren't available to you today, you can also use your blanket, or if you have a strap around, or a hoodie or a t-shirt, anything like that, you can wrap it across the base of the feet. And then while we're here in happy baby, as we lean over to the right, you can start to extend through the right leg. As we come over to the left, you can start to extend through the left leg. And then let's bring the soles of both feet together here. Bound angle pose on the back. And then draw the feet around in a circle. And then in the opposite direction. And then go ahead and release both legs down to the floor. Let's extend both legs all the way down. And then take your feet wide in a V. Draw your arms up and overhead so that you become a capital letter X on the floor. And let's pause here for a moment. Fill your body with breath. And now let's inhale and reach through the left toes and the right fingertips. Inhale deeply. And exhale, release. Inhale again on that same diagonal. Left toes, right fingertips. Reach. And exhale. Inhale, reach. And exhale, release. Let's do the opposite diagonal. Reach through the right toes and reach through the left fingertips. And exhale. Inhale, reach. And exhale, release. One more time on this diagonal. And exhale. And then let's reach through all 10 fingers, all 10 toes. And exhale. Inhale again, reach through all 10 fingers, all 10 toes. Maybe you broaden across the heart. And exhale. Last time, inhale. And at the top of the breath, retain the breath. And then release it. Make sure your glutes are released here. Soften into the earth. Let's bring our hands by our sides. Start to bend one knee and then the other. Let's make our way onto the left side. And here, we're going to rest our head on our left arm, or if you like, you can prop your head here with your left hand. We're going to lengthen here on our left side and find nice long legs. Let's flex both feet. Imagine you're standing on the opposite wall here. What we're going to do is we're going to lift that right leg just a few inches so that it's parallel here to your right hip. You can stabilize here with the right hand in front of you. And we're going to access some extra space here alongside the hip. So what I'd like you to do is reach that right heel down towards the wall. And then draw it back up. And then draw it down, finding length along the side of the hip. And then draw it back up. It's a really subtle movement, but it will feel like your right side is like a foot longer than your other leg. Of course, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but sometimes the sensation is bigger than what the actual physics is. Our interoception and our proprioception are different sometimes. Good. And then strengthen one more time. Lengthen. And then draw in, strengthen. Good. And then let's bend that right knee. Place it in front of you on the floor, or you can use a block here to support the right knee. Debbie, you know what's coming up next, right? Let's go ahead and bend that left knee, draw it in towards your bun, and then take your right hand, find a bind with that left foot. And then from here, let's take advantage of all that opening we did on our twist and recline back. You can use a folded blanket here for a pillow. Cat pulling its tail. Or, as Debbie calls it, feed me another grape. So you may just find a bind here on the side, or you might roll that right shoulder blade significantly back and find a bigger back bend, maybe a stretch of the psoas, front of the hip, front of the left thigh and the quadriceps. Good, and then go ahead and release the left leg down. Roll back over onto the left side. Go ahead and extend both legs so that they're parallel once again, all the way down the mat. And then let's roll into the belly. So we're rolling over like a log. Fold one hand on top of the other, find crocodile pose. And now let's come up into Sphinx pose when you're ready. So come up onto the forearms, draw your elbows to the sides of your ribs. Hands are palms down on your mat. And then let's find a little bit of our foundation here. So if you like, you can lengthen one leg and then the other a little further down your mat. And then, just as we were doing with bridge pose, let's tip the pubic bone down into the mat. You'll feel your glutes engaged, but I don't want the glutes to become like the main driver here. What we really want to do is focus on the upper body. So this is just our foundation. And then draw the heart forward. Maybe you draw the arms a little bit isometrically back behind you to find that heart opening. Gaze stays down towards the floor, maybe a few inches in front of your mat. And then from here, we're going to do a little cat and cow in the upper spine. So from here, go ahead and press into your forearms, draw your chin towards the chest, and round in the upper spine. And then inhale, draw the heart forward. Find a little back bend here. Exhale, round the upper spine, draw chin in towards the chest. Inhale, draw forward, move with your breath. And then let's come back into Sphinx pose. Go ahead and rest your hands back down to your mat. Rest your forehead on your hands. And then draw the feet mat width distance apart, or maybe even more. Bend your knees. And move the feet from side to side. And then release the feet down, back down onto the floor. Take another couple of breaths here. Breathe into your lower back. And then let's roll over onto the right side. I'm going to turn around here so I'm still facing you. Come onto the right side here and lengthen both legs. You can prop your head in your hand, your right hand, or on your arm. Flex both feet here. You can stabilize with your left hand in front of you. And then lift that left leg just a few inches so that it's parallel to your hip. And then from here, let's lengthen through that left hip. And then draw back up. Lengthen and strengthen. Yeah. Do this a few more times with your breath. Good, and then let's bend that left knee. Go ahead and place it down in front of you on your block or maybe on the floor. Extend through the right leg. When you're ready, bend that right foot in towards you. Find a bind with the left hand. If it's not available to grab your foot, you can also wrap a strap or your blanket around that foot and use that as a way to reach. From here, you can stay sort of leaning over onto your right side. This is plenty of stretch, actually. This feels really good in the front of the hip for me. Or you can roll that left shoulder blade back. Maybe find some support for the head. And find your crossbody twist here. Wherever you are, let it be delicious. Take one more breath here. And exhale, let it go. And then go ahead and release your right leg. Go ahead and roll over onto your stomach one more time. Resting crocodile pose here for a moment. Breathe into your lower back. From here, let's do a little shoulder stretching and finishing in the hips here. So let's take the left arm out to the side. We're going to rest it here as if we're making a T shape with the left arm, or half a T. And then bring your right hand by your right chest. And we're going to roll over any amount onto the left side. Excuse my back here. We're going to open up in the front of the shoulder. And you might be a little closer down to the earth, or you might come all the way over onto the left side. My head needs a little support here, so I'm going to use a block. So make sure you keep that left elbow a little bent so that the opening here comes into the front of the shoulder. If you have a rotator cuff injury, this might be a posture you avoid. If you're comfortable here, go ahead and scissor the legs open. Draw the right leg back, the top leg. Draw the left leg forward. And then finally, if you want to extend that a little bit more, you can reach with the right arm diagonally in the opposite direction of the right foot. And then start to draw that right leg back, left leg back to center, roll back onto the belly. This time let's take half frog pose. So bend the right knee, draw it out to the side. Right knee is approximately at a right angle here. If this feels like this is too much on the right knee, you can use a rolled up or folded blanket and place it right at the front of the right hip crease for support. That's going to lessen the angle that your hip is extended outward to. And then from here you can stay, you can elevate here on your forearms, or you can come all the way down and pause here. Take a deep breath in and exhale. And then let's roll over a bit. If you're using a blanket, go ahead and release it. And now let's do those 2 stretches on the other side. Take your right arm out to the right, let it rest on the floor. And then roll over any amount onto the right side. I need to come a bit forward because I'm hitting a wall. There we go. And then you can use your left hand here for leverage. Once you found a comfortable space here with the right arm, let's work with the legs. So draw the left leg back, right leg forward. And you can let that back leg sort of hang out in space if that's feeling comfortable, or you can bend that knee and place that foot on the floor. You can move a little bit here, opening up through the front of the left hip, the side of the left hip, and maybe even extending through the left arm and reaching diagonally in opposite directions with the left hand and left foot. Take one more deep breath. And then bring the legs back to center. And then we'll roll back over into a prone position on the belly. And then let's take our half frog here. So bend the left knee, draw it out to the side. Maybe you use a folded blanket at the front of the hip. You can come and elevate yourself here on your forearms or come all the way down. And in fact, maybe I'm going to use my block here underneath the forehead. Last breath here. And then start to roll over to the side. If you have a blanket, go ahead and release it. Come back over onto the belly. Find crocodile pose. And then if it feels good, widen the feet, bend the knees. And windshield wiper the feet from side to side. And then go ahead and release the feet. Let's roll over onto the back. Look at that, we made it back here. Let's go ahead and use our block here for our last few movements of practice. Let's find our bridge position again. So draw your feet close to your buns, lift your hips, and this time let's bring the block, place it underneath the sacrum. And that is in between the top of the pelvis and your sitting bone, so that expands across the pelvis. If you're feeling any back squinchiness, which is the official term in yoga, squinchiness, you might have the block a little too far up. See if scooting the block down helps here. And then let's find supported bridge pose with feet on the floor. And then you can allow your sacrum just to settle in here. So good. You can stay here, or if you like and you want an inversion to finish your practice here, you can bring one or both legs up and overhead. Let your legs be free and easy here, so nice bend in the knees. Relax legs. Then maybe you rotate the feet on the ankles. And rotate in the other direction. Good. And then from here, you can explore a little bit with the legs. You can draw them apart, draw them back together. You can lengthen one leg down, keep one leg up. So find some intuitive movement here that honors your body where it is today. We'll spend about 30 more seconds here with the legs elevated if you've made that choice. And now when you're ready, let's bend both knees, place your feet on the floor, pause here for a few breaths. And then let's press into the feet, lift the hips, remove your block. Bring your hips back down onto the floor. Rest here for a moment. You can extend both legs. Notice the whole back body here touching the earth. Right, it's time for final relaxation. So if you would like to come into a restorative heart opener here, you can do so with your blanket. You can roll this up into a roll, place it horizontally here across your mat. And then lower down onto it so it touches at the very bottom, or very tops of your shoulder blades. And then with your hands behind your head, you can walk your shoulder blades one at a time a little further up. So we're getting some traction in the spine here. And then once they're down towards the tips of the shoulder blades, you can let the shoulders and the head cascade down towards the floor and rest here. I like to keep my knees bent in this position and soles of the feet on the floor because that's nice and neutral for the low back. But if it's okay with your low back, you can also extend the legs down your mat. So here's one option. Or you can come into a restorative shape of your choice. If you have some wall space, you can come into legs up the wall. You can come into traditional Shavasana, perhaps with a blanket underneath the head. So find your bliss. And then once you have arrived in your position for rest, let's take a few deep breaths, releasing control of the breath, just taking a deep inhale and exhaling with a sigh. With your eyes closed or your gaze softened, focus on letting go of expectations you may have of the body, letting go of where you may be holding on to certain aspects of the body. Make sure your glutes are relaxed, the fronts of the hips, the shoulders. Release the lower jaw, let the teeth part. Let your tongue come to your lower jaw, removing it from the top palate. Soften your cheeks and your forehead. Soften your eyelids. And let your body be supported by the earth beneath you. And now start to become aware of your breath. Start to deepen your breath and let it start to awaken and energize your body. Start to bring small movements back, the fingers with the toes. Rotate hands on the feet and hands on the feet. I'm already in this blissful state. Hands on the wrists and feet on the ankles. And then when you're ready, draw your arms up and overhead. Take a nice big stretch here. Inhale and get long, and then exhale, release. Draw your knees in towards you one at a time. And then roll over to one side. And make your way back up to a comfortable seat. Once you're in your seat, bring your hands to heart center. And take a moment to recall that heart's desire. That thing you want to bring forward into the world. And bow your head to your heart. Sending gratitude out to you for sharing this practice with all of us in this circle. I bow to you.